Hi guys, it's Mary McIntyre. Welcome to another video. I'm so excited to share this one with you. First of all, a quick story time, very quick. About 10 or 11 years ago, I went to Astrofest in London with my husband. He was my boyfriend at the time, but husband now. And there was a guy there from NASA who was talking about the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and the amazing high-resolution photographs that that probe has been sending back. If you don't know what that is, it's basically an orbiter that is orbiting the moon and has given us the most exquisite photographs. In that talk, he showed a photograph of the sun rising over the central peak of crater Tycho, and there was kind of like a bit of a collective gasp because this is a stunning photograph. Then he started to zoom in and in and in and in, and each time he zoomed in it was just kind of like, oh my goodness. And the final picture was a photograph of a 400-foot boulder sitting on the top of the central peak of Tycho as the sun rose over it, and it was just so unbelievably beautiful. Well, the original picture, the kind of wide field one, is one that I show in my Shadows in Space talk because it is a photograph that I have wanted to, I wouldn't say create a sketch of, because a sketch implies something that you do quickly, but I've wanted to create a piece of art done in pastels using that photograph as a reference. And finally, a couple of weeks ago, I sat down and made a start on it, and it has taken 2 weeks of tinkering with it every time I've had a spare few minutes in a day, and it's finally finished and I am so in love with it. Now, before I show you, I'm sorry I don't have a time lapse of me creating this, but as I said, I've been kind of dipping in and doing this in different rooms in the house, and it was just impossible to set up a camera and photograph all of it. But I did take photographs with my phone at different points, so I will show you those as we go through the video. And just to show you the order that I approached it and kind of how I built up the different layers. If you're not interested in that, that's absolutely fine, but I will just show you the finished result. Oh my God, I'm so happy with how this turned out. As usual, whenever I do an astronomy sketch, you kind of look at it on the page and all you see are the flaws and the ways that it differs from the photograph that you've used and all of that stuff. But the minute you see it on camera, even if you just take a picture of it with your phone, you suddenly see it through different eyes. And I think it's just the way that you look at a sketch in the same direction for so long, all you ever see are the kind of bad bits, and that you kind of view as bad bits anyway. But yeah, I'm so happy with this. I haven't ordered a frame yet, so I'm trying to keep this nice and dry and away from the cats so that I can get this in a frame and put it on the wall, because this is too nice to just go into my sketches folder. So yeah, I've finally done it. I've been wanting to do this for so long, and I'm really glad that I've made the time and finally done it. It would have been so much easier if I'd done this on A3, but quite honestly, keeping an A3 pastel sketch safe in the time it would take you to do it is just not something that we have. 4 cats, and I have to use this room for multi-purposes, and pastels smudge really easily. You get a tiny bit of moisture on it and it's wrecked. So basically A4 works for me because I can kind of keep it nice and safe. So if you want to find out kind of just in very loose terms the order that I approached that and how I did it, then keep watching. If not, thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.
First thing I had to do was actually crop the original photograph because the width to height ratio was not the same as an A4 sheet of paper. So I kind of played around with the image so that I could kind of vaguely get the proportions right while still keeping all of the shadows in shot. I then very gently marked out the outline of the mountains and some of the foothills, but also just a rough outline of where the shadows were going to fall just before I then kind of cracked on starting to do the main peak. And the thing I was thinking about here is where is mostly in shadow, where is getting the most amount of sun, and also looking at textures, because I wanted to make sure that I was blending with the blending stumps in the direction that it looked like the peaks were falling, if that makes sense. So it's all about light and shade really, so I kind of just played with that until I got the textures something like what I wanted. Once I'd done that, I moved on to these foothills that have lots of shadows in between them and lots of texture as well, but all the time thinking about where the sun is hitting the most, where the sun is hitting the least, and then how I blend those different regions and which pencil strokes I left unblended. So I really took my time on these bits. This took ages. I genuinely spent longer on this sketch than I've ever spent on anything I've done before. Once I'd done that, I moved on to the little foothills on the right hand side and started out just with the vague outline, and some of them are poking out a shadow, some of them are not, so it kind of looks a bit strange when you outline them like that. But once I had the rough outline, I realised that the kind of scale was slightly wrong where I'd drawn it, but it was too late to change it at this point. So I just carried on doing exactly the same with the light and shade, blending in the direction that I thought would most mimic the texture that I was seeing in the pictures, then going over with the black and the white to just add those unblended, really dark bits and light bits. So that's what that looks like, kind of wide field. I then went around and marked out where the shadows were going to fall, because I wanted those shadows to be as dark as possible. Shadows on the moon are really well pronounced and sharp and very dark, because I wanted to then fill in the background but without touching where the shadows were. Now generally when I do backgrounds on sketches I like to blend it quite a lot, but I realised that it looked better not blended. The whole background around this region is very, very textured. And I was very aware that if I tried to get every single crater and boulder in the right place, I'd be at it for years. So it was just about finding those textures. And then I went down the left-hand side, adding the kind of peaks that are visible at the end of the shadow and some of those other little peaks and troughs that were visible along the left-hand side of the image. And once I'd done that, again, this just kind of didn't look right at first until you kind of get everything together. I think these pictures go through a bit of an ugly phase, but once you start adding more and more of that texture, and anywhere that I wasn't specifically adding a boulder or a particularly shadowy bit, I was just using alternating between the white and black and just adding unblended texture, again just to try to get a texture that was mimicking what I was seeing on the photograph. So next up, it was a case of planning what I was going to do with the bit on the top right of the image. There was so much stuff there that it was really difficult to kind of decide what I was going to include and what I wasn't, and which bits I was going to take artistic license with, because although I wanted this to look, as close as possible and get the main features in the right place, with Pastel, there's a limit to the dynamic range that you can get, and I really wanted that big kind of set of peaks to be the focal point and the shadows. So what I ended up doing actually was going around and kind of adding the main highlight and shade, adding the texture all the way around the outside, but then I went over with my finger and just muted all of that a little bit, so that would make the kind of mountain region stand out more. And once I'd done that, I then coloured in all of the black shadows. And that took forever because I wanted to kind of scribble on it and then blend and then scribble and then blend some more. So there was a kind of limit to how many pencil strokes were visible there. So once I'd done all of that, it was just a case of final tweaks, and one of the things I wanted to do is just get the white pencils again and just go over some of the brighter parts of that peak, because once I'd kind of gone around everything and blended the black in, some of it looked a little bit muted and I really wanted that central region to stand out. So it was just a case of going in with the white pencil and just adding a few more strokes on top, so everything was sort of done in layers. So this is the final result once I photographed it, and obviously just kind of tweaked it a little bit to hide some of the pencil strokes. So yeah, that's how I approached it, and I would probably do all of that again exactly the same way if I did this again. I think the crucial bit is if you are going to be putting really dark shadows in, it's best to not have any of the white pencil on the page first. So yeah, I hope you found that helpful. Give this a go. Just find a really nice high-res photograph taken by an orbiter, whether it's a planet or a moon picture or even a nebula taken with the Hubble Space Telescope. It's really good fun to make artwork using NASA photographs as a reference. So I hope you found it helpful. Don't forget to hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.